Welcome to English Gateway. Have you ever wondered why some people walk into a room and instantly grab everyone's attention? They don't have to be the richest person, the most attractive, or even the smartest. Yet people naturally respect them, enjoy listening to them, and remember them long after the conversation ends. What is their secret? It isn't expensive clothes. It isn't a fancy degree. And it definitely isn't luck. Their greatest strength is the way they communicate. Communication is one of the most valuable skills you can ever develop. It can help you build stronger relationships, earn more money, gain respect, grow your confidence, and create opportunities that many people only dream about. Think about your own life for a moment. Have you ever met someone who looked completely ordinary, but the moment they started speaking, the whole atmosphere changed? Their words sounded confident. Their voice felt calm and powerful. Every sentence carried meaning. You found yourself paying attention without even realizing it. Now think about the opposite. Have you ever met someone with amazing qualifications, impressive achievements, and great knowledge, but they struggled to express themselves? No matter how talented they were, people overlooked them because they couldn't communicate their value. That's why communication is not just another skill, it is the bridge between your talent and your success. No matter what career you choose, whether you're a student, an employee, an entrepreneur, a teacher, a freelancer, or someone preparing for interviews, your ability to communicate can completely change your future. The good news is that communication is not a gift reserved for a lucky few. It is a skill, and every skill can be learned. In today's video, I'm going to share 10 practical communication techniques that successful speakers, leaders, entrepreneurs, and confident professionals use every single day. These aren't complicated theories. These are simple techniques you can start practicing immediately. And once you make them part of your daily life, you'll notice people responding to you differently. They'll listen more carefully, they'll trust you more easily, and they'll remember you much longer. Another benefit? While watching this video, you'll naturally improve your English listening skills because you'll hear practical vocabulary, useful sentence structures, and real-life communication examples throughout the lesson. So make sure you stay until the very end because every tip builds on the previous one. And the final technique could completely transform the way people see you. If you're new to English Gateway, don't forget to subscribe and join thousands of learners who are improving their English while learning life-changing skills. Now let's begin. Tip 1. Your presence speaks. Before your words, here's something fascinating before you even introduce yourself, before you shake hands, before you say your very first sentence. People have already started forming an opinion about you. Psychologists have found that first impressions happen within just a few seconds. That means your body is communicating long before your mouth does. Your posture, your facial expressions, your eye contact, your smile, your confidence, your energy, everything sends a message. Whether you realize it or not, people are constantly reading these silent signals. Imagine you're walking into a job interview. Two candidates arrive at exactly the same time. Both have similar qualifications. Both graduated from good universities. Both have prepared equally well. The first candidate walks in with slouched shoulders, avoids eye contact, keeps looking at the phone, and appears nervous. The second candidate walks in calmly. They stand straight. They smile naturally. They maintain comfortable eye contact. Their movements are relaxed, and they seem confident without trying too hard. Now ask yourself honestly, which person creates the stronger first impression? Most people will naturally choose the second candidate, not because they know more, not because they're more talented, but because their body language communicates confidence before they even begin speaking. This is the silent language of success. Strong communicators understand one important truth. People don't simply hear your words, they experience your presence. Your body language often speaks louder than your voice. So how can you improve your nonverbal communication? Start with your posture. Stand straight without looking stiff. Keep your shoulders relaxed. Lift your head naturally. This simple adjustment instantly makes you appear more confident. Next, practice eye contact. Don't stare at people. Instead, maintain natural eye contact while speaking and listening. It shows confidence, honesty, and genuine interest. Now let's talk about smiling. A warm, natural smile is one of the easiest ways to make people feel comfortable around you. It tells others that you're friendly, approachable, and confident. But remember, a fake smile is easy to recognize. Keep it genuine. Another important habit is controlling unnecessary movements. Many people tap their feet, play with their fingers, adjust their clothes repeatedly, or constantly check their phones while talking. These small actions reveal nervousness, even when their words sound confident. Instead, stay calm, move naturally. Let your gestures support your message rather than distract from it. Here's a simple challenge for you. The next time you enter a classroom, an office, a meeting, or even a family gathering, don't rush. Take one slow breath, walk confidently, smile gently, stand tall, and observe how differently people respond to you. You'll quickly realize something powerful. Confidence isn't always something you feel first. Sometimes it's something you practice until it becomes natural. Remember this: your words introduce your ideas, but your presence introduces you. Master your presence, and you'll already win half the conversation before speaking a single word. Now that you've learned how to make a powerful first impression, let's move to the next communication secret. Tip 2. Become a great storyteller. Have you ever noticed that some people can talk for just 2 or 3 minutes, yet everyone remembers what they said for days? Meanwhile, others speak for 20 minutes, share lots of facts, and still nobody remembers a single sentence. The difference isn't intelligence, it isn't vocabulary, and it isn't confidence alone. The difference is storytelling. Stories are one of the oldest and most powerful forms of communication. Long before people had books, smartphones, or social media, they shared knowledge through stories. That's how lessons, traditions, and wisdom were passed from one generation to another. Even today, nothing captures attention faster than a well-told story. Think about your favorite movie, or the best speech you've ever heard, or even a childhood memory that still makes you smile. Chances are, you don't remember every fact, but you remember the story. That's because our brains are naturally designed to connect with stories. Facts make people think. Stories make people feel. And when people feel something, they remember it. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine you want to convince your younger brother that hard work leads to success. You could simply say, "Work hard if you want to achieve your goals." It's true, but it's also easy to forget. Now imagine saying this instead. A young man grew up in a small town where opportunities were almost impossible to find. Every morning he woke up before sunrise, studied while others slept, and kept learning even when people laughed at his dreams. Years later, he became the first successful engineer from his village. The same people who doubted him proudly introduced him as their inspiration. Which version leaves a stronger impression? Obviously the second one, because stories create emotion, and emotion creates memory. That's why successful teachers use stories. Successful leaders use stories. Successful entrepreneurs use stories. And the world's greatest speakers use stories. Whenever they want to explain an idea, they don't simply present information. They paint a picture. Inside the listener's mind, the beautiful thing is that you don't need dramatic life experiences to become a good storyteller. Simple everyday moments work just as well. Maybe you learned an important lesson after making a mistake. Maybe you had an embarrassing experience that taught you confidence. Maybe a conversation with a stranger completely changed your perspective. These ordinary experiences can become powerful stories when shared honestly. So how do you tell a story that keeps people interested? First, begin with curiosity. Give your listeners a reason to pay attention. Instead of saying, "I want to tell you something that happened yesterday," try saying, "Yesterday, something unexpected happened that completely changed the way I think about confidence." Immediately, people become curious. Second, introduce a challenge. Every good story includes a problem. Without a challenge, there's no reason to keep listening. Maybe someone failed. Maybe someone felt afraid. Maybe someone lost an opportunity. The challenge creates tension, and tension keeps people engaged. Third, show how the problem was solved. People don't just enjoy hearing about struggles. They want to know what happened next. What lesson was learned? What decision changed everything? What mistake should they avoid? This is where your story becomes valuable. Finally, finish with a meaningful lesson. Don't assume your audience will automatically understand the message. Guide them. Help them connect the story to real life. For example, after sharing a story about overcoming fear, you might conclude by saying, "That day I realized that confidence doesn't appear before action. It grows because of action." Now your audience doesn't just remember the story, they remember the lesson behind it. Here's another important tip. Keep your stories focused. Many people include unnecessary details that make listeners lose interest. Every sentence should move the story forward. If a detail doesn't help the message, remove it. Also, make your stories visual. Instead of saying, "It was a difficult day," say, "The rain was pouring, my phone battery was almost dead, and I had no idea where I was." Now your audience can actually picture the scene. That's the difference between telling information and creating an experience. Great storytellers don't simply describe events. They make listeners feel like they were there. One more secret. Your voice matters just as much as your words. Change your tone when something exciting happens. Slow down during emotional moments. Pause before an important sentence. These small changes make your stories come alive. Remember, you don't need to sound like a professional actor. You simply need to sound genuine. People connect with authenticity far more than perfection. The next time you're talking with friends, giving a presentation, attending an interview, or speaking in a meeting, don't just share information. Share a story, because facts may educate people, but stories inspire them. And when you become someone whose stories inspire others, people won't just hear what you say. They'll remember you long after the conversation is over. Now that you know how to capture people's attention with stories, let's move on to another communication skill that helps people trust you on a much deeper level. Tip 3. Master the power of empathy. Imagine this. You're having one of the worst days of your life. Nothing seems to be going right. You're stressed, exhausted, and emotionally drained. Finally, you decide to talk to someone you trust. After listening for a few seconds, they interrupt you and say, "Don't worry. It's not a big deal. You'll be fine." Technically, they tried to help, but somehow you don't feel better. Now imagine a different response. The person listens without interrupting. They maintain eye contact. They let you finish. Then they quietly say, "I can understand why you're feeling this way. That sounds incredibly difficult. Thank you for trusting me enough to share it." How would you feel? Most likely you'd immediately feel lighter. Not because they solved your problem, but because they made you feel understood, and that's exactly what empathy is. Empathy is the ability to understand another person's emotions and see the world from their perspective. It doesn't mean agreeing with everyone. It doesn't mean feeling sorry for people. It simply means making someone feel heard. This is one of the greatest communication skills you can ever develop. Because people may forget your advice, they may forget your opinions, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Many people believe communication is all about speaking well. In reality, great communication begins with listening well. The best communicators aren't always the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who make others feel comfortable enough to speak. Think about the people you enjoy spending time with. Chances are they're not constantly talking about themselves. They ask questions, they listen carefully, they pay attention, and they genuinely care about your answers. That's why people naturally trust them. Let's look at a real-life example. Suppose your colleague says, "I've been working late every night this week, and honestly, I'm exhausted." An ordinary response might be, "Everyone works hard. You'll get used to it." The conversation usually ends there, but an empathetic response sounds different. That must be really tiring. Working under that much pressure every day can't be easy. How have you been managing everything? Notice what happened. Instead of closing the conversation, you opened it. Instead of judging, you showed understanding. Instead of giving quick advice, you created connection. And connection is the heart of communication. So how can you become a more empathetic communicator? First, listen with full attention. When someone is speaking, don't spend that time preparing your own response. Focus completely on what they're saying. Sometimes people don't need solutions. They simply need someone who truly listens. Second, avoid interrupting. Many people interrupt because they're excited or because they think they already know the answer. But interruptions often make others feel unimportant. Let people finish their thoughts. You'll understand them much better. Third, acknowledge their emotions. Simple phrases like, "I understand." That sounds challenging. I can imagine how difficult that must have been. Or, "Thank you for sharing that with me," can make an incredible difference. These sentences don't solve problems. They build trust. Fourth, ask thoughtful questions. Instead of changing the subject, encourage the other person to continue. Ask questions like, "What happened after that? How did you feel?" Or, "What do you think you'll do next?" These questions show genuine interest, and genuine interest creates meaningful conversations. Here's another habit successful communicators practice. They observe emotions, not just words. Sometimes a person says, "I'm okay," but their face tells a completely different story. Their voice sounds quiet. Their smile disappears quickly. Their energy feels different. Empathy means paying attention to these silent messages, too. Sometimes asking, "Are you sure you're okay?" with kindness can open the door to an honest conversation. Another important lesson is this: don't rush to fix every problem. Many people think helping means giving advice immediately, but often, the greatest gift you can offer is your presence. Listening patiently can be more valuable than offering 10 different solutions. Remember, people don't always need someone to rescue them. Sometimes they simply need someone to understand them. This principle works everywhere: in friendships, in families, at work, in business, in leadership. Even during interviews and presentations, people naturally respect communicators who show emotional awareness. Because empathy creates psychological safety. It makes others feel accepted instead of judged. And once people feel safe around you, they become more open, more honest, and far more willing to trust you. Here's a challenge for today. During your next conversation, try speaking a little less. Listen a little more. Instead of thinking about what you'll say next, focus on understanding the person in front of you. You may be surprised how much deeper your conversations become. Always remember this powerful truth: people rarely care how much you know until they know how much you care. When your words are supported by genuine empathy, your communication becomes more than impressive. It becomes unforgettable. Now that you've learned how to connect with people's hearts through empathy, let's move to the next communication secret that instantly makes people feel valued and respected. Tip 4. The sweetest sound in any language. Let me ask you a simple question. Imagine you're walking through a crowded shopping mall. Hundreds of people are talking. Music is playing. Children are laughing. Phones are ringing. Suddenly, someone calls your name. Even in all that noise, your attention immediately shifts. You turn around almost instantly. Why? Because nothing captures our attention quite like our own name. One of the greatest communication experts, Dale Carnegie, once said, "A person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language." This simple idea has helped millions of people build stronger relationships, better friendships, and successful careers. Your name is much more than a collection of letters. It represents your identity, your memories, your family, your experiences, your personal story. That's why hearing your name spoken with respect feels naturally meaningful. Great communicators understand this psychological principle. Instead of treating people like strangers, they make them feel recognized. And one of the easiest ways to do that is by remembering and using their names naturally. Think about the last time you visited a cafe. You placed your order, waited for a few minutes, and then the employee smiled and said, "Your coffee is ready, Sarah," or "Here you go, Ahmed. Have a wonderful day." It only took a few seconds. But somehow the experience felt warmer and more personal. Instead of feeling like another customer, you felt noticed. That tiny moment created a positive emotional connection. Now imagine the same situation. The employee simply says, "Next." You collect your drink and leave. The service is still acceptable, but it doesn't feel memorable. That's the difference a simple name can make. The same principle works in every area of life. In business meetings, during interviews, inside classrooms, at networking events, and even in casual conversations. People naturally feel closer to those who remember their names. Let's imagine another example. You attend your first day at a new company. Most people introduce themselves quickly and then forget everyone's names within minutes. But one colleague pays attention. The next morning, they smile and say, "Good morning, Emily. How's your second day going?" Immediately, you feel comfortable talking to them. Why? Because remembering your name tells you something important. It says you matter, and everyone wants to feel that way. However, there's an important balance. Using someone's name too often can sound unnatural. Imagine someone saying, "That's a great idea, David." "I completely agree, David." "What do you think, David?" "Nice meeting you, David." After a while, it starts feeling forced. Natural communication always sounds effortless. A better approach is to use a person's name at meaningful moments. Use it when greeting them. Use it when asking an important question. Use it when appreciating something they said, and use it again while saying goodbye. These moments feel genuine rather than repetitive. Another powerful habit is learning to pronounce people's names correctly. If you're unsure, politely ask. Most people appreciate the effort. Even saying, "Could you help me pronounce your name correctly? I want to make sure I say it the right way," shows respect. People remember those small acts of consideration. Here's another interesting situation. Suppose you're attending a networking event. You meet 10 different people. Most conversations sound almost identical. But later, one person approaches you and says, "Hi, Michael. It was great hearing about your photography business earlier." Immediately, you remember them. Why? Because they remembered you. Not only your name, but something meaningful you shared. That's how lasting relationships begin. Successful leaders understand this extremely well. They don't just remember job titles. They remember names. They remember personal details. They remember birthdays, achievements, and important milestones. Those small gestures make people feel valued, and valued people become loyal. If you struggle to remember names, don't worry. Like every communication skill, it improves with practice. When meeting someone new, repeat their name naturally during the conversation. Associate their name with something memorable, or mentally connect it with their profession, hobby, or appearance. These simple memory techniques make recalling names much easier. Over time, remembering names becomes second nature, and the impact is enormous. People feel respected. Conversations become warmer. Trust develops faster. Relationships grow stronger. Always remember this. People may forget the exact words you used. They may forget where they met you, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And one of the simplest ways to make someone feel important is to remember the one word they have heard since childhood, their name. Master this habit, and you'll discover that genuine respect often begins with something as simple as saying someone's name with sincerity. Now that you've learned how to make people feel valued, let's move to the next communication skill, one that separates emotionally intelligent people from everyone else. Tip 5. Emotional intelligence. Respond. Don't react. Let me ask you something. Have you ever said something in anger that you regretted just a few minutes later? Maybe it happened during an argument with a friend, a disagreement at work, or even a simple conversation with a family member. In the heat of the moment, emotions take over. Words come out before we have time to think, and once they're spoken, they can't be taken back. This is exactly where emotional intelligence makes all the difference. Many people believe that being a great communicator means speaking confidently or using impressive vocabulary. Those things certainly help. But the people who truly stand out are the ones who know how to control their emotions while communicating. That ability is called emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the skill of understanding your own emotions, managing them wisely, and recognizing the emotions of the people around you. It's one of the most valuable skills you can develop, not only for communication, but for success in every area of life. Here's the biggest difference. Emotionally intelligent people understand. They respond. They don't react. At first, those two words sound almost identical, but they create completely different results. A reaction is immediate. It's driven by emotion. There's no pause, no reflection, no control. A response is different. It comes after a moment of thought. It is calm, purposeful, and intentional. Let's imagine a real-life situation. You're presenting an idea during an important meeting. After you've finished speaking, Someone immediately says, "I don't think this plan will work at all." If you react emotionally, you might become defensive. You interrupt them, raise your voice, or argue without listening. Suddenly, the discussion turns into a conflict. Instead of protecting your idea, you've damaged your professional image. Now imagine responding instead. You take a slow breath, stay composed, smile politely, and say, "Thank you for sharing your perspective. I'd like to understand your concerns better so we can improve the idea together." Notice what happened. The conversation stayed respectful. You appeared confident. You showed maturity, and instead of creating an argument, you created collaboration. That's the power of emotional intelligence. Let's take another example from everyday life. Suppose you're driving home after a long day. Another driver suddenly cuts in front of you. Your first instinct might be frustration, maybe even anger. If you react immediately, you might start shouting, honking the horn, or letting that single moment ruin the rest of your day. But if you respond instead, you remind yourself, maybe they're rushing to an emergency. Either way, getting angry won't improve the situation. Within seconds, you've protected your peace of mind. The situation hasn't changed, but your response has, and that changes everything. The same principle applies to relationships. Imagine someone you care about says something hurtful during an argument. Your emotions tell you to hurt them back, to prove your point, to win the argument. But emotionally, intelligent people ask themselves a different question. Do I want to win this argument or protect this relationship? That's a powerful question, because sometimes winning a conversation means losing someone's trust. Instead of reacting emotionally, they pause. They choose their words carefully. They focus on solving the problem instead of attacking the person. This doesn't make them weak. It makes them wise. So how can you build emotional intelligence? The first habit is learning to pause. Even a few seconds of silence can completely change the direction of a conversation. That small pause gives your brain enough time to think before speaking. Second, learn to identify your emotions. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Am I frustrated? Embarrassed? Disappointed? Anxious? Simply naming your emotion reduces its power. Instead of being controlled by your feelings, you become aware of them. Third, separate the person from the problem. Sometimes we attack people when the real issue is simply a misunderstanding or a difficult situation. Focus on solving the issue, not defeating the other person. Fourth, think about the long-term result. Before responding, ask yourself, will these words help improve this situation tomorrow? If the answer is no, choose different words. Remember, every conversation is an opportunity to strengthen a relationship or weaken it. The choice belongs to you. Another important habit is staying calm under pressure. The strongest communicators are not those who never experience emotions. They're the ones who know how to manage them. Pressure reveals character, and emotional intelligence helps you remain steady, even when others lose control. That's why great leaders stay calm during crises. Excellent teachers remain patient with difficult students. Successful managers handle criticism professionally, and confident speakers don't panic when something unexpected happens. Their strength comes from emotional control. Here's a simple exercise you can start today. The next time something frustrates you, don't answer immediately. Take one deep breath. Count silently to 3. Then ask yourself, what's the smartest response, not the fastest one? You'll be surprised how often that single habit prevents unnecessary conflict. Always remember this, anyone can react. Very few people know how to respond, and those who master this skill earn something that cannot be demanded: respect. When people know that you stay calm, think clearly, and communicate wisely under pressure, they naturally begin to trust your judgment. And trust is one of the strongest foundations of powerful communication. Now that you've learned how to master your emotions, let's move to the next communication technique, a simple conversational skill that instantly makes people feel heard, understood, and eager to continue talking. Tip 6. The echoing technique. Make people feel truly heard. Have you ever met someone who made you feel completely comfortable within just a few minutes of talking? You found yourself sharing more than you originally planned. The conversation felt natural. You never felt judged, and somehow they made you feel like your words genuinely mattered. What was their secret? In many cases, they were using a simple communication method without even making it obvious. It's called the echoing technique. This is one of the most effective ways to build trust. Encourage conversation and make people feel understood. The best part? It's incredibly easy to learn. So what exactly is echoing? Echoing means repeating a small part of what the other person has just said, not word for word, not like a robot, just one important keyword, emotion or idea. This simple habit encourages the speaker to continue naturally. More importantly, it tells them, I'm listening, I'm interested. Your words matter. Let's look at an example. Suppose your friend says, I've been feeling completely overwhelmed at work lately. Instead of immediately giving advice, you simply reply, overwhelmed at work? Notice how natural that sounds. You're not interrupting. You're not changing the subject. You're inviting them to continue. Your friend might respond, yeah, we've been short-staffed for weeks, and I've been handling almost everything by myself. Without asking a complicated question, you've encouraged a much deeper conversation. That's the beauty of echoing. Here's another example. Imagine your colleague says, I finally completed the project after almost 4 months. Instead of saying, that's nice, try responding with 4 months. That must have taken an incredible amount of dedication. Immediately, they become excited to tell you more. They might explain the challenges they faced, the lessons they learned, or how rewarding it felt to finish. Once again, the conversation grows naturally. Now let's see how this technique works in everyday life. Imagine your younger brother says, I don't think I'm good enough to pass this exam. Instead of immediately saying, don't worry, you'll be fine. Try saying, you don't think you're good enough. This gives them space to explain what's really bothering them. Maybe they're afraid of failing. Maybe they're comparing themselves to others. Maybe they simply need someone to listen. Sometimes, people don't need instant encouragement. They need someone who genuinely understands what they're feeling. That's exactly what echoing helps you do. Now, here's an important point. Echoing doesn't mean repeating every sentence. That would sound awkward. Instead, choose one meaningful word or emotion. Words like excited, disappointed, 3 years, your first interview, that surprised you. These short reflections feel natural and keep conversations flowing. Another key ingredient is your tone of voice. Your tone should sound curious and warm, not sarcastic, not mechanical, not like you're interrogating someone. The goal is to encourage, not pressure. Let's imagine another situation. You're meeting someone for the first time at a networking event. They say, I recently started my own business. Instead of immediately talking about yourself, simply respond, your own business? Now they naturally explain why they started it, what challenges they're facing, and what they're hoping to achieve. Within minutes, you've built a stronger connection than someone who spent the entire conversation talking about themselves. That's another important lesson. Great communicators are often great listeners. People love conversations where they feel heard, and the echoing technique helps create exactly that experience. This method is especially valuable in leadership, customer service, coaching, teaching, counseling, sales, and negotiations. Why? Because when people feel understood, they become more cooperative. They're more willing to trust you. They're more open to your ideas, and they're far more likely to remember how comfortable they felt while talking to you. Here's a simple challenge you can practice. Today, during your next conversation, resist the urge to jump in with advice. Instead, repeat one meaningful word or phrase naturally. Watch how the other person responds. You'll probably notice that they begin sharing more details without you asking dozens of questions. That's the hidden power of active listening. Always remember this. People don't enjoy conversations because someone speaks brilliantly. They enjoy conversations because someone makes them feel important. When you master the echoing technique, you do exactly that. You create conversations where people feel respected, understood, and valued. And those are the conversations people never forget. Now that you've learned how to become a better listener, let's move to the next communication skill, one that can completely transform the way your words sound every time you speak. Tip 7, voice modulation, make your voice. Impossible to ignore, imagine two people delivering the exact same message. They use the same words, the same examples, the same information. But when the first person finishes speaking, nobody remembers much. When the second person finishes, the audience applauds. People stay inspired. They remember every important point. Why? Because communication is not only about what you say, it's also about how you say it. Your voice is one of the most powerful tools you have. A confident voice can make simple words sound extraordinary. A dull voice can make even brilliant ideas sound boring. That's why successful speakers, teachers, leaders, and presenters spend time improving their voice modulation. So what is voice modulation? Voice modulation means changing your voice naturally by controlling your pitch, pace, volume, and pauses. Instead of speaking in one flat tone from beginning to end, you allow your voice to reflect your emotions and your message. Think about your favorite movie actor or a famous motivational speaker. Do they speak in exactly the same tone every second? Of course not. When something exciting happens, their voice becomes energetic. When something emotional happens, they slow down. When they want to emphasize an important point, they pause. These small changes keep people interested. Let's begin with pitch. Pitch simply means how high or low your voice sounds. If your voice stays too high all the time, you may sound nervous or anxious. If it stays too low without variation, people may lose interest. Confident communicators naturally change their pitch according to the situation. Imagine saying, "We finally achieved our goal." Your voice should naturally become brighter and more energetic. Now compare it with, "That was one of the hardest moments of my life." This sentence deserves a calmer, deeper tone. The emotion changes. So should your voice. Next comes pace. Pace is the speed at which you speak. Many people speak too quickly because they're nervous. Others speak so slowly that listeners lose focus. The secret is balance. When sharing exciting news, speaking slightly faster creates energy. For example, the moment we heard the results, everyone jumped, celebrated, and hugged each other. The faster pace matches the excitement, but when sharing an important lesson, slowing down creates impact. For example, that single decision completely changed my life. Notice how slowing down makes the sentence more meaningful. Now, let's talk about volume. Speaking loudly doesn't make you confident. Shouting often has the opposite effect. Instead, learn to control your volume naturally. Raise it slightly when emphasizing an important idea. Lower it when sharing something thoughtful or emotional. This creates variety and keeps your audience engaged. One of the greatest communication secrets is something many people overlook. It's called the power of the pause. Silence can be just as powerful as words. Many speakers become uncomfortable with silence, so they fill every second with unnecessary words like, like, or basically. Strong communicators don't fear silence. They use it intentionally. Imagine saying, "One decision, pause, can completely change your future." That short pause builds anticipation. It gives your audience time to absorb your message. Instead of rushing from one sentence to another, allow your words to breathe. Another habit that improves voice modulation is emphasizing important words. For example, compare these two sentences. Communication changes your life. Now say, "Communication changes your life," or "Communication changes your life." Each version highlights something different. This small adjustment makes your speech sound much more natural and engaging. Here's another practical tip. Record yourself speaking. Choose a short paragraph from a book or article. Read it aloud. Then listen to the recording. Ask yourself, does my voice sound energetic? Am I speaking too fast? Am I pausing naturally? Do I sound confident? Most people improve dramatically once they hear themselves objectively. Practice reading speeches, news articles, or motivational quotes aloud every day. Even 10 minutes of daily practice can transform your speaking style within a few weeks. Remember, your goal isn't to sound like someone else. Your goal is to become the best version of your own. Voice authenticity always sounds better than imitation. Let's imagine you're giving a presentation. If your voice stays flat from beginning to end, your audience will eventually stop paying attention, even if your information is valuable. But if your voice rises with excitement, slows during important moments, and pauses before key ideas, people naturally stay engaged. They don't just hear your message, they experience it. That's what memorable speakers do. They don't simply deliver information. They create an emotional journey. Always remember this powerful truth. People may forget the exact words you used, but they'll always remember how your voice made them feel. When your voice carries confidence, warmth, energy, and sincerity, your message becomes far more powerful. Master your voice, and you'll discover that communication is no longer just about speaking. It becomes an experience that people genuinely enjoy. Now that you've learned how to bring your words to life through voice modulation, let's move to the next communication technique, one that helps you stay confident, protect your boundaries, and handle difficult conversations without losing your composure. Tip 8, the broken record technique. Protect your boundaries with confidence. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone simply refused to accept your answer? You politely said no, but they kept asking, they kept convincing, they kept pushing. Eventually, you felt uncomfortable. Maybe you gave in just to end the conversation. If this has ever happened to you, you're not alone. Many people struggle to say no, not because they don't know what they want, but because they're afraid of disappointing others or creating conflict. The good news is that there's a simple communication strategy that can help you stay calm, confident, and respectful without starting an argument. It's called the broken record technique. Despite its unusual name, it's one of the most powerful ways to communicate with confidence. So what is the broken record technique? The idea is very simple. Instead of explaining yourself over and over again, instead of becoming emotional, instead of arguing endlessly, you calmly repeat your main message, using almost the same words every time, just like an old record that keeps playing the same line. You stay consistent. You don't become rude. You don't become defensive. You simply repeat your position with confidence and respect. Why is this technique so effective? Because many people expect you to change your mind after enough pressure. When they realize your answer remains calm and consistent, they usually stop pushing. Let's look at a real-life example. Imagine you're at a party. Someone offers you a drink. You politely say, "No thanks, I'm not drinking tonight." A few moments later, they smile and say, "Come on, just one glass." Instead of giving a long explanation, you simply respond, "Thank you, but I'm not drinking tonight." A minute later, they try again. Seriously, everyone is having one. Once again, you smile and calmly repeat, "I appreciate it, but I'm not drinking tonight." Notice something important. You didn't argue. You didn't criticize them. You didn't invent excuses. You simply repeated your decision. Eventually, most people understand that your answer isn't changing. Now imagine another situation. A coworker asks you to finish their assignment even though you're already overwhelmed with your own work. You might feel guilty saying no, so you start explaining. "I'm really busy. I have several deadlines. Maybe tomorrow." Actually, the more you explain, the more opportunities they have to challenge your reasons. Instead, you can simply say, "I'd really like to help, but I won't be able to take on another task today." If they continue asking, repeat the same message calmly. "I understand, but I won't be able to take on another task today." No anger, no frustration, just consistency. This technique also works beautifully in professional situations. Imagine you're negotiating with a client. The client keeps requesting additional work without increasing the budget. Instead of becoming defensive, you calmly reply, "We're happy to help with those additional requests." They can certainly be included with an updated quotation. If they continue insisting, repeat the same professional response. Every time, calmly, respectfully, confidently. Eventually, they understand that your boundary is firm. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they must justify every decision. In reality, you don't always owe lengthy explanations. Sometimes a clear, respectful answer is enough. The broken record technique teaches people something important. Your boundaries deserve respect, and when you respect your own boundaries, other people are far more likely to respect them too. Of course, your tone matters. This technique is never about sounding angry or sarcastic. If your voice becomes aggressive, the conversation turns into conflict. Instead, stay relaxed, speak slowly, smile when appropriate. Let your confidence come from your consistency, not from raising your voice. Here's another everyday example. Imagine A friend keeps inviting you somewhere, but you genuinely can't go. Instead of inventing different excuses each time, simply say, "Thank you for inviting me, but I won't be able to make it this time." If they ask again, "I really appreciate the invitation, but I won't be able to make it." Simple, clear, respectful. Over time, people begin to understand that your words carry weight. Another important benefit of this technique is reducing stress. Many people become anxious because they think every difficult conversation requires a perfect explanation. It doesn't. Often, confidence comes from simplicity. The fewer unnecessary explanations you give, the calmer you remain. Here's a small challenge for you. The next time someone pressures you to do something you genuinely don't want to do, resist the urge to over-explain. Instead, prepare one polite sentence. Repeat it calmly whenever necessary. You'll notice something surprising. People often stop arguing much sooner than you expected, and you'll walk away feeling confident instead of guilty. Always remember this. Confidence isn't about speaking louder. It's about standing by your words with calm consistency. When you master the broken record technique, you show people that kindness and firmness can exist together. You protect your time, you protect your energy, and most importantly, you protect your self-respect. Now that you've learned how to communicate with confidence while maintaining healthy boundaries, let's move to the next communication secret, a skill that instantly makes conversations more enjoyable, memorable, and genuinely human. Tip 9. Use humor wisely. Make people enjoy talking to you. Think about the people you enjoy spending time with the most. What makes them so enjoyable? Is it because they know everything? Is it because they always sound serious? Probably not. More often than not, it's because they know how to make people feel relaxed. They know how to smile. They know how to laugh. And they know how to bring positive energy into almost every conversation. That's the real power of humor. Humor isn't about becoming a comedian. It isn't about telling jokes every few minutes, and it certainly isn't about making fun of other people. Real humor is much simpler than that. It's the ability to make conversations feel lighter, warmer, and more enjoyable. Great communicators understand that people remember how they felt during a conversation. If you can make someone smile, they'll naturally enjoy talking to you. And when people enjoy your company, they're much more likely to trust you. Trust is the foundation of every strong relationship. Whether you're making new friends, building professional connections, leading a team, or speaking in front of an audience, a little genuine humor can make a huge difference. Let's imagine you're attending a job interview. The interviewer asks, "Can you tell us about a mistake you've made?" Many people become nervous. They answer with stiff, formal language. But imagine smiling naturally and saying, "Just one mistake? I was hoping you wouldn't ask me to choose only one." The interviewer smiles. The atmosphere immediately becomes more comfortable. Then you smoothly continue with your serious answer. What happened? You didn't avoid the question. You simply reduced the tension before answering it. That's smart communication. Here's another example. Imagine you're leading a meeting. Everyone looks tired after several hours of discussion. The room feels quiet. You smile and say, "I think the coffee deserves an award today. It seems to be working harder than all of us." People laugh. The energy changes. Everyone relaxes, and the meeting becomes more productive. Notice something important. The humor wasn't offensive. It wasn't forced. It was simple, natural, and appropriate. That's exactly how effective humor works. Now imagine you're giving a presentation. Instead of beginning with a long, serious introduction, you start with a light observation. "I promised myself I'd keep this presentation short. And then I made the mistake of getting excited about the topic." People smile. Now they feel connected to you. They're more willing to listen because you've created a comfortable atmosphere. Humor also makes you appear more approachable. People often assume that serious communicators are more intelligent. In reality, confident communicators know when to be serious and when to make people smile. That balance creates stronger relationships. However, there are a few important rules. First, never use humor that embarrasses someone else. If your joke makes another person uncomfortable, it isn't helping your communication. Respect always comes first. Second, avoid forcing humor. You don't have to be funny every minute. Natural humor is always more effective than rehearsed jokes. Third, learn to laugh at yourself occasionally. Self-deprecating humor shows confidence. It tells people that you're comfortable with who you are. For example, imagine saying, "I was so confident walking into the meeting, until I realized I'd brought the wrong notebook." Simple, honest, relatable. People appreciate authenticity far more than perfection. Another powerful source of humor is everyday life. Funny observations, unexpected situations, small misunderstandings, shared experiences. These moments often create the best conversations because everyone can relate to them. The goal isn't to entertain people. The goal is to make them feel comfortable. That's a huge difference. Here's another important lesson. Timing matters. A funny comment at the right moment can completely change the mood of a conversation. The same comment at the wrong moment can feel inappropriate. Great communicators pay attention to the situation before using humor. They understand their audience. They know when people need encouragement, when they need seriousness, and when they simply need a reason to smile. This awareness is what makes humor powerful. Let's try a simple challenge. Over the next few days, don't focus on telling jokes. Instead, look for opportunities to smile more. Notice small, positive moments. Share lighthearted observations when they feel natural. You'll discover that conversations become easier. People respond more warmly, and you'll begin building stronger connections without even trying. Always remember this. People may admire intelligence, but they enjoy kindness, warmth, and positivity. Humor brings all three together. When used wisely, it breaks barriers. It removes tension. It creates trust, and it transforms ordinary conversations into memorable experiences. Master this skill, and people won't just remember what you said. They'll remember how happy they felt while talking with you. Now that you've learned how to make conversations more enjoyable, let's move to our final communication secret. A quality that creates deep trust, lasting influence, and genuine human connection. Tip 10. Vulnerability. The secret to genuine human connection. We've reached the final communication secret, and in many ways, this may be the most powerful one of all, because no matter how confident your voice is, no matter how impressive your vocabulary becomes, no matter how perfectly you deliver your message, people won't truly connect with you unless they connect with the real you. That is where vulnerability comes in. When many people hear the word vulnerability, they immediately think of weakness. They imagine someone who cries easily, shares every personal problem, or constantly seeks sympathy. But that's not what vulnerability means. True vulnerability is the courage to be honest. It's the confidence to admit that you're human. It means being open about your experiences, your struggles, your lessons, and your growth without pretending that your life has always been perfect. Ironically, the strongest people are often the most vulnerable because they have nothing to hide. They don't feel the need to impress everyone. Instead, they focus on building real connections. Think about your favorite speaker, your favorite teacher, or someone whose story has inspired you. What made them unforgettable? Was it because they claimed they had never failed? Probably not. More likely, they shared a difficult chapter of their life. They talked about rejection, failure, fear, self-doubt, and then they explained how those experiences helped them become stronger. That's what people remember, not perfection, growth. Let's imagine you're giving a motivational speech. You have two different ways to introduce yourself. The first version sounds like this. I've always been successful. Everything I planned worked perfectly, and I've never really struggled. People might admire your achievements, but they probably won't relate to you. Now imagine saying this instead. A few years ago, I completely lost confidence in myself. I had failed an important opportunity, and for weeks I questioned whether I was good enough. Looking back now, I realize that failure became the turning point that taught me resilience, discipline, and self-belief. Which version feels more powerful? The second one. Because people don't connect with perfection. They connect with honesty. Here's another everyday example. Imagine you're leading a team at work. Instead of pretending you always know every answer you say, I don't have the perfect solution yet, but I'm committed to finding one with all of you. What happens? Your team trusts you more. They see confidence, not arrogance, strength, not ego, because admitting you don't know everything doesn't reduce your credibility. It often increases it. Vulnerability also improves personal relationships. Imagine a misunderstanding with a close friend. Instead of saying, "You always make everything difficult," you honestly say, "I felt hurt because our friendship means a lot to me." Notice the difference. One sentence creates defensiveness. The other creates understanding. When people understand your feelings, instead of feeling attacked, communication becomes much healthier. However, vulnerability doesn't mean oversharing every detail of your life. It doesn't mean turning every conversation into a discussion about your problems. Healthy vulnerability is intentional. You share experiences that help others learn. You share lessons that inspire growth. And you always respect the situation and the people around you. Another beautiful thing about vulnerability is that it gives others permission to be honest too. When you speak openly about overcoming fear, other people become comfortable sharing their own challenges. When you admit making mistakes, others stop feeling ashamed of theirs. When you show authenticity, authenticity spreads. That's how deep relationships are built, not through perfection, but through trust. Here's a simple exercise. The next time you tell a story, don't only talk about your success. Talk about what it took to get there. Talk about the mistakes, the doubts, the lessons. People won't admire you less. They'll respect you more, because real success is never about never falling. It's about learning how to rise. Every time you do, always remember this. Perfect people may impress others. Honest people inspire them, and inspiration creates lasting influence. Final thoughts. We've covered 10 powerful communication techniques. Each one may seem simple on its own, but together, they have the power to completely transform the way you communicate. Let's quickly remember them. First, make a strong first impression through confident body language. Second, use storytelling to make your message memorable. Third, practice empathy so people feel understood. Fourth, remember and use people's names sincerely. Fifth, develop emotional intelligence by responding instead of reacting. Sixth, use the echoing technique to become a better listener. Seventh, improve your voice modulation so your words come alive. Eighth, protect your boundaries with the broken record technique. Ninth, use humor wisely to create comfort and connection. And finally, never underestimate the power of vulnerability. These aren't just speaking techniques, they're life skills. Practice them every day. Use them in conversations with your family, your friends, your coworkers, your classmates, and even with complete strangers. The more you practice, the more natural they become. Over time, you'll notice something incredible. People will listen more carefully. They'll respect your opinions. They'll enjoy talking with you. And most importantly, they'll remember you, not because you tried to impress them, but because you made them feel valued. That's the true purpose of communication. It isn't about speaking the most. It isn't about using difficult words, and it certainly isn't about proving you're the smartest person in the room. Real communication is about creating understanding, building trust, sharing ideas, and making meaningful human connections. So starting today, challenge yourself to practice just one of these techniques every single day. Small improvements, repeated consistently, create extraordinary results. Your confidence will grow, your relationships will become stronger, and new opportunities will naturally begin to appear. If you found this lesson valuable, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who wants to become a better communicator, and subscribe to English Gateway for more practical English lessons and life-changing communication skills. Thank you so much for watching. Keep learning, keep practicing, keep believing in yourself, and remember, your voice has the power to inspire, encourage, and change lives. Use it wisely. I'll see you in the next video.